Welcome back to Brick and Brand, a podcast at the intersection of retail and entrepreneurship. We're your co-hosts, Delaney and Bradley Roach. Today, we're joined by Ryan Romo, co-founder and managing partner of RFP Homes. It's a company that's built on cold calling, on grit, and on showing up with a level of consistency that most people will never be able to commit to. We're going to be talking about what it takes to build, to scale, and to stay in this game for the long haul. So without further ado, Ryan, welcome to Brick and Brand.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to get diving deep with y'all.
So much good stuff to cover with you. We're so happy to have you here today. So we will just go ahead and jump in. So for the audience and everyone listening, give us a little bit of background. You're still a young man, but you were not always doing what you're doing now. You did real estate, and then you now have started RFP Homes, which is a really unique model that a lot of people may not be familiar with, called wholesaling. So give us a little bit of background. What brought you to where you are today?
Well, first off, I do want to shout out the entire RFP Homes organization team. All credit to them. They're the best team in the single family wholesale space. And, they empower me to come out here and kind of be the spokesman for the organizations. First and foremost, I know we're going to be talking about some of my story and whatnot. If I say I, it's really we. There's no I without RFP. So shout out to you guys. You're the best in the industry.
Love that.
Yeah, well, I guess first off, it is a really niche, unique industry. I did start in commercial real estate. I worked for a developer. It was a really cool situation in Waco where this guy, most people in the major market, they're more granular, right? One asset class, one obsession, that's all they do. He kind of cornered the market and a tertiary market and literally played with every asset class that you make up. So I got a little taste of industrial, multifamily, ground up single family, redevelopment, retail. My first sale was a triple net lease mod pizza. I got to work on a little bit of everything. And obviously with every asset class, you deal with different types of individuals, different personality types, I would say, all very unique in its own right. My first 3 years, I got a little bit of taste, like what I liked, what I didn't like. And, eventually I did find my way wanting to come back to Dallas. I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Had been in Waco for 8 years, going to Baylor, playing baseball, and then working for this developer, Turner Behringer Group.
Sick 'em Bears.
Sick 'em Bears, Bradley. But, like everything in life, right? Sometimes timing's sometimes not the best. Sometimes it's not the worst. I moved a month before COVID hit. So my plan was to continue to stay in the retail commercial space and, do the normal roadshow, try to get in with the Cushmans, the JLLs, the CBREs, and CBRE was my first internship. So I had my sights set on staying in commercial and, that the plans had to shift because COVID hit. I couldn't get a job. No one was hiring. And I had just eventually been sitting on my hands for about 3 months. And I was like, I got to pivot. I got to find a job. I'm not making any money. And I already wasn't making a lot of money my first 3 years. You guys are probably aware of that. To get the ball rolling with income. But I was okay. I was willing to sacrifice at the time because I knew the greater good. This is a long-term game. So I wasn't going to quit. But I did Audible, and my co-founder, Nick Poulos, was the top performing agent at a firm that kind of monopolized the industry of which we play now, the single family wholesale space. And more or less, he was the number one agent in the whole country. And I was like, what are you doing? I mean, he was 26 years old. He was making really good money, just having a blast doing it. I still didn't really quite understand what he meant by single family wholesale. And by that point, I was like, I don't care. I'll take an interview. I need a job. So he was in the Fort Worth office. He got me a job with the general manager of the Dallas office. It went well after 3 rounds and they hired me. And honestly, at that point, it was my only option. So it was kind of at a necessity. And I knew it was in real estate. I knew it was sales. And I just hit the ground running. And that's kind of where I started my career in single family investment wholesale real estate. Where do you kind of want to go from there? Do you want to go from what it looked like
your co-founder, Nick, was he a friend or like an acquaintance, or was this just like cold outreach? Hey, can I get an interview?
So it was actually my at my fraternity in Baylor's twin brother best friends who I babysat his dog without even had met him. And I just was in his apartment babysitting his dog. And I was like, I really like this guy. So I drove back the next weekend to go hang out with him and he played baseball at TCU. We had a lot of mutual friends. It was a friendship at first. And then his now wife, they have a baby Nate, 2 years old, and my now wife. I got married last month. They're best friends from
Congratulations.
TCU, so it's kind of a family affair. So friendship first, and then it turned into that business, ride or die brother relationship. Like we're going to go and take over this industry.
And then when you started working with him, what was it, a different company? This was not RFP at that time, correct?
Yep. No, in the single family wholesale space, I mean, it's really 20 years old. It's a newer, it's not an old, CBRE been around since 1906. It's a newer industry that's still being, commercialized today. So there's still a lot of opportunity in the space being a newer industry. Um, you know, we he was at the Fort Worth office, so I didn't technically work with him. I worked at the company at which he worked, which was I think in about 30 markets and had just under 1,500 agents at the time. So I started from the bottom, like bottom of the barrel. They don't really care who you are, where you're from. It's performance or die or get out. So feet to the fire kind of mentality.
Cutthroat, it sounds like. Yeah.
Very
So, Ryan, your dad was involved with Eatsies, which, as I know, is a really iconic food concept in Dallas. Did you kind of grow up around that environment? And do you think that impacted your vision on maybe building something of your own?
I had a great example of my parents. They're the gold standard of like starting from nothing, working paying their way through college, just scraping along and just making it happen. My mom hates when I talk about her. She's a very private person, but she made her way up to Southwest Airlines CFO, and she'd been there for 35 years. She just retired. But she came from a town called Marlin, where only three people in her class went to college. She was the first in her her lineage to go to college. Girl power.
Wow.
She is my everything. So I had great examples from both ends. And yes, my father is the CEO of Beatsies here in Dallas, and it's not a bad place to fly for free for years and then get to eat for free. Get a good combo. But I always had that. They demanded a lot out of me, and also I
Mhm.
had I really didn't, and that's why I think I'm a good entrepreneur. I don't like being boxed in. I wasn't a good student. I played baseball. That was my obsession. My first 23 years, it took me to Baylor to play, and I didn't really care about anything else, right, at the time. So I was super competitive for one, and obviously sports ends for everyone. Every athlete dies twice. So whenever baseball ended, I was like, what do I want to do with my life? And
Mhm.
yeah, my first taste in the real estate was my I got to work with my dad's tenant representation team on a CBRE internship one year. So my dad definitely hooked it up there, but I was like, I loved real estate. I loved the hustle and bustle, the call, just the energy. And it was just,
Mhm.
it was the most comparative thing I could find to like a competitive sports organization in terms of culture and performance. And it was a no brainer to me. So I knew when baseball ended, it would be real estate. Obviously I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I got my license like my sophomore year at Baylor, and I was like, I'm doing this. Whenever baseball's done, I'm going all in. So that's kind of how I picked real estate. And yes, my first taste was the retail tenant representation side, because of
Okay.
so shout out to dad. Thanks for hooking that up.
That's so awesome. I love when you have parents that can, like, mentor you and kinda show the way in their whatever field they're doing. We had the same thing, and it means so much. So you're at this company, end of COVID, middle of COVID, you're working at the bottom of the totem pole, you're probably making tons of cold calls. Take us I do wanna get into when you started RFP and what wholesaling is all about, but take us into that world. Were you cold calling all day, or was it just a volume? What were those early months like when you realized, "Okay, I'm good at this," and maybe it was from cold calling, maybe there was other things, but what are some tips you would give if cold calling was an effective way of getting business? Do you have any tips? Because I think that's something a lot of people are scared of in the
Right.
business.
Frankly, I was a little nervous my first 3 months. I didn't really have to cold call as much, at my first position. I had already built up a pretty solid network of, commercial professionals. By the way, whenever I did transfer into the single family space, not a single person I'd ever met up to that point became a client of mine. So this was a whole
Mm,
different buyer class, but so I was literally starting from nothing. But exactly your point. I think I started a little bit slower because I didn't really realize the power of cold calling. It was one of those things where
mhm.
I maybe was a little bit scared to make mistakes and sound dumb, which obviously looking back now, I'm like, there you got to have no fear. You got to
Mhm.
make shit happen, right? That's the only way to, so I basically set a very simple roadmap for myself. It was, I had to hit 50 cold calls a day, no matter what. I actually had a little
Mm.
baseball pitch counter, uh, that I held with me, and,
Oh.
and I would literally not leave my desk until I hit those 50 phone calls. I also would mark, and it's very simple. It's three things: cold calls, digital marketing online, LinkedIn, Facebook, and actually Craigslist. Craigslist was a huge lead funnel
Interesting.
for me, posting these deals and getting my phone ringing. And then, of course,
Mhm.
good old fashioned networking. So I had a minimum of two meetups I had to go to every single week. And most of the meetups are, five, six, seven. And it was a little harder during COVID
Mhm.
times. I mean, keep in mind, I was working out of a 500 square foot studio by myself, having to figure a lot of this stuff out and really fight for this information. I didn't have an office to go to. And I had to really beat down people's doors, like my GM, my assistant GM, my sales director, the top performers on the team. Like, I didn't wait for things to come for me. I went out and found that information.
Mhm.
I would aggregate that information from all the best people that were performing well in the company, and then I would go, play it out in the field. And eventually, I told you this before the call, Bradley. Like, eventually, I stopped caring if I was embarrassing myself. I just went for it because I knew the only way to get to the other side is through immense pain and suffering. That's growth, right? And
So
embarrassing.
true.
Yeah, the rate at which you're willing to like embarrass yourself and get better,
Mhm.
that's the rate at which you actually start winning. So all I did was
Great
keep it
point.
simple. I stayed consistent. I made my 50 calls a day. I posted every single deal on the board, first thing in the morning, last thing before I went to bed. And a lot of times on our deal board, and we can get into like the actual specifics of what the model is and how we work in a team environment, but also compete against each other. But we always had a full contracted deal board worth of homes. Think of like you go to BMW or Sewell, like all those agents are reps in the office. They're all competing to get those sales of the cars in the lot, right? Very
Mhm.
similar to wholesale real estate. You have contracted homes, a deal board, and all the sales reps, they're all competing against each other. And building out their own book of buyers of typically flippers and rental buyers. And then whoever gets the contract with, earnest money and signed on the dotted line wins those contracts, right? And acquisitions jobs to continue to funnel those deals in and, source them. But yeah, again, it's cold calling, it's marketing yourself online, and it's networking and getting out there. And, again, it's an infinite game as long as you continue to stay consistent and you hit your non-negotiables every day. Like, the tides will turn. Eventually, the levee
Yeah.
will, and you'll start seeing the successes and the actual, contracts and making the money you kind
Mhm.
of, but trusting the
Yeah.
process first.
I think that's such a valuable point of advice, and you touched on the consistency and setting a standard for yourself and continuing to show up and hit those metrics every day, even when, it feels like the return isn't necessarily there. You're not seeing the results quite yet. With that, with the cold calling and the social media outreach and, the online presence, I'm sure you experienced a lot of rejection at first or opinions. Did you always go into it as this is my brand and I'm going to do whatever I want? Or was there a period where you were like, wow, I'm getting some tough feedback?
Well, you guys have heard this before. You get paid on your nose, right? And it only takes one yes to
Mhm.
find that one whale buyer who's going to buy with you. So the nose got me excited. And frankly,
Yeah.
I actually always tried to flip the nose, even if people were legit investors and they were trying to look, because that's all sales is, right? You're looking for clients or customers that are looking for your product. Right?
Mhm.
So for me, if I knew I was speaking with a legit investor, they told me no at the time, I would still somehow figure out a way on that call to like pitch my value, really figure out their why, their strategy, maybe do a little due diligence on the back end through some simple
Mhm.
reverse searching, seeing what their portfolio looked like. I'd put them in a simple Excel sheet. And if something did match what they were looking for, I'd call them back again. And I called. So
Yeah.
I never really I never really thought of no as a finality. I just thought of it as a recommendation at the time. But
Yes.
yeah.
I love Just that. Not right now, but that doesn't mean
Just
it's
not
a
right
no.
now.
No is
Yeah.
a delayed yes.
I love
Okay,
that.
so you start RFP. How many employees? Is it just you and your partner at that time, or who was the first team members there?
So let me take it back a little bit. So I at that larger firm that had kind of monopolized this industry, I was there for just under 3 years. I stayed in sales. I really mastered my sales, the sales side of the business, my first two, and then I eventually moved over to acquisitions. I really only spent like 6 or 7 months in acquisitions there. And acquisitions, first and foremost, is where you're typically connecting with like uh, traditional residential realtors that maybe have uh, distressed assets that aren't going to show well on the open market, like conventional, pretty fixed up homes. Maybe they just have, we're kind of a simple solution of moving those products to end because the end buyers are flippers. They want distress, they want value add, right? And then more importantly, we typically add the most value to true direct to seller wholesalers. And these direct to seller wholesalers, they are people that are spending marketing dollars on PPC, SEO. Maybe they have cold calling centers, reaching out to people that are about to be in pre foreclosure, or maybe a large equity. They have a lot of equity in the home, and they've owned the home for over 40 years. Age can be a factor. Whatever their metrics are, they're trying to connect with people that need to sell their house quick for cash and in a timely and efficient manner. So I stayed at that firm for about 3 years. I think I had mastered the basics enough to where I was like, I'm ready. There was a lot of buyers, I believe, being underserved in this industry. And I just thought, I like anyone else that goes and starts a business, I thought we could do it better. So,
Absolutely.
I rallied the troops. I grabbed Nick. Nick was the general manager at a more technology facing company called Sunday. And I had some old acquaintances, friends that were private equity guys, more commercial development. And I had this, idea I wanted to make this happen for so long. And I just kind of the stars all aligned, and this timing winded up being perfect. So we kind of just went for it. And frankly, like the original business idea actually wasn't even doing what we're doing today. It was, we saw
Mm.
we saw Airbnb as being a hot trend of fun. So we were trying to jump on that, plus still doing what we're doing for revenue generation and cash flow. And then we were going to invest into Airbnb. That we don't do that. That was our crazy idea in the beginning. But I think first and foremost, the most important step is we just got going and figured it out from there. So, yeah, then
Ryan,
we
can
started.
you explain for to a layperson such as myself, what is wholesaling and how is it different than traditional brokerage for someone who maybe has never heard of wholesaling?
For sure. So traditional, obviously, you guys are hunting for listings, right? Whether that's buyer reps or you're listing a single family property or a commercial asset, you're getting a listing, you're making a point, 2 points, 3 points on said sale when the transaction closes. We actually find these properties and we actually contract them. So a normal purchase sale agreement, earnest money, option money delivered, typically 3 to 5 days of option period to actually move that contract to an end buyer. And then we just sell the property via assignment and we make the margin on the buy
Mhm.
and sell at close. So that's how we make our revenue. That's how we make our fee. It's still that's our commission. We just call it, it's just a wholesale fee at the end of the day.
What happens if you don't find a buyer? Do you terminate the PSA?
We
'Cause
cancel the
you have it
contract
under
from there.
contract, right?
Correct.
Your team?
We have
Yeah.
correct. We have the equitable interest to actually do what we want, that contract in the option period. But we're very upfront with our plans on these properties. We don't act
Mhm.
like we're the buyer. We
'Kay.
tell, and again, we're getting most of our properties from true direct to seller wholesalers. That's a whole different business model. They're more A to B, A being the distressed homeowner or whoever needs to sell their house for quick, whatever the situation is. A lot of times they're distressed, sometimes they're not, but that's that direct to seller A to B. That's its own business model. We don't do that. We serve the B, the wholesaler that's getting those contracts. They're really good at connecting with homeowners and being boots on the ground and getting those contracts under contracts, getting those homes under contract, and then we are on the back end of investor obsessed, investor focused, helping them deliver what, everyone has different buying strategies. So,
Yeah.
on the front side, we're there to help them in an efficient manner of getting those properties moved. Because a lot of times
Mhm.
wholesalers, they're really good at getting these contracts bought but they're not good at the buyer side of things. We're the experts with
Right.
the buyers, and the investors. So,
That makes
um,
sense. Thank you for that.
that's the supply chain, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
Yes. That was a great explanation. So, Ryan, I know that over the past 3 to 6 months, you have been focused on building your social media presence and your brand awareness online. Talk us through that and how you're treating RFP Homes as more of a media company, and what do you see that how do you see that growing the brand?
Yeah, I've always loved socials. I always utilize it. Like we were talking about my first 2 years of sales, I yielded a lot of results by just 3xing, 4xing, 10xing people in terms of output on socials. And it wasn't anything special or sexy. At first it was just posting my deals, letting people know, hey, I'm an investment agent. Come work with me. Right. And I just didn't really think about it. I did what was required to connect with buyers at the time. And then I enjoyed, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I like this. I can get more, I consider myself more of a creative thinker. I love art. I love music, things like that. So, and then I started having fun with it. And, even in the beginning too, I always had that in the back of my head, like, oh, maybe I'm kind of being annoying, or there's a line in the sand where
Mhm.
it's like we were talking about earlier, where you're like, you just have to stop caring about what other people think. Uh, just post. It's a journal, but whatever comes to your mind, whatever you don't have to overcomplicate it. Whatever your zone of genius is, just talk out, just send it out to the ether and
Mhm.
be a creator, not a consumer. I think when you make that switch, that's when you start seeing a lot of results. But in terms of RFP, where that is kind of my main focus. The previous 15, 16 months, all I did all day long was hire and recruit and interview. Because a company's only the average of as many of good, high quality A-level talent that's in the organization. So we're in the people game, of course. But
Mhm.
we've since added some ahead of the department now to handle that, so I can go mostly focus on branding, marketing, and really
Mhm.
show people what we're doing here at RFP Homes via socials, content, distribution on the channels. And I'm kind of in that weird zone again where it's like I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just figuring it out. I feel dumb every day. We're just trying to get 1% better every day. But
Yeah.
really the goal is to build the brand and showcase what we're doing. I think a lot of people want to see who am I working with, what is the culture like, what are they all about. We're doing a lot of podcasting internally with our team and putting out shorts, and that's on RP side. More my side. I try to come from more of a entrepreneur, business founder mindset, motivation. Again, just things that are
Mhm.
more akin to me. Again, just trying to keep it simple and
Well,
put out these content.
Well, I love your content. I
Yes.
watch the videos. I've actually learned a lot watching your clips about the cold calling because that's something
Mhm.
Delaney and I do. And so I think your content's the perfect mix of engaging and short, but it's also educational. And if you're listening to it, you really can take something away. So great job. Keep that up. I do want to talk about something. You and I talked about this when we were visiting in your office a few months ago. But you talked about how you create funnels and pipelines for deal flow because your business is built on volume is what you
Mm.
shared with me, which is a little bit different than the retail space, I think. You're doing just incredibly high volume of deals. What's your process for kind of streamlining all this deal flow and creating a pipeline? And you call it a funnel, which is a fun word. I don't use that, but I think it's a great word to describe funneling deals. So kind of walk us through that process.
Volume negates luck for sure, right? The more output, the more shots on goal, the more successful you're going to be at bottom of funnel. Um, So there's company funnels, and that's a lot of the stuff that I work on in terms of ads or just unique original posts of content, whether it's recruiting or whether it's buyers or investors to get them into our marketplace. From there, those leads do distribute to our sales and acquisitions team individuals, and then they go from there. And also too, on top of like the company level funnels that we're trying to create that drive buyers and recruits into the organization, our agents, they all run their own books of business. They're creating
Mm.
creating their own unique funnels at the same time and managing that.
Mhm.
And again, it's nothing crazy. I consider cold calling a funnel, frankly.
Sure.
It's those three things we talked about in the beginning. It's cold calling, it's online marketing, and it's networking, and that's our bread and butter.
It's not
And
rocket science, right? It's just
and
doing it.
And then from there, you can track conversions. Like if I do 100 cold calls, maybe 50 of them are actually investors, maybe 30 are actually interested in looking right now, maybe 10 are actually capable of buying a property. You keep moving them down the set funnel, and
Mhm.
then maybe that leads to 2 sales. Great. I reverse engineer what do I need to do at the top end to get to 10 sales. Right. I need to do
Mhm.
1,000 calls. So
I love that.
Yeah. Ryan, how big is your team now? How many team members do you guys have roughly?
yeah, so we just hit our 3-year anniversary. We have a Dallas office here in Uptown, and we have an office in Fort Worth. But we are just under 60 total team members, and that also comprises of back end support, marketing, a director of recruitment, actual employees. Our agents don't like to be called employees. They're entrepreneurs at heart, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're 1099, eat what they kill, agents. So that's, but with agents plus, and real employees, back in support, we're just under 60.
That's
So yeah, it's a
fantastic.
sizable organization. It sometimes doesn't feel real. So
Big
I just
team.
remember when we started the team, it was just 5 guys with no office, just slinging a couple deals and maybe closing one or two a month and, rolling in that revenue, reinvesting, just slowly growing. So, it's been pretty incredible to see the growth, and it's just a testament to the tool and the culture and everything we're trying to create here. So I'm really,
100%.
yeah, proud of what everyone's doing and what we've been able to do here in a short manner.
That's incredible, and that's quite the team there you've got, and multiple offices. So I'm curious, and this is maybe a little bit of a hypothetical question, but also I think really interesting. If we dropped you into a brand new market, no experience, no contacts, how would you rebuild or start rebuilding RFP in the course of, the first year, the first 12 months? What are some of the first things you would do?
That's a load of, do I still have my 8 years of real estate experience?
I
And
think so.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
but for everyone who's starting new, I think this is a really valuable
yes.
insight because people do move, right? And they start in new markets, and it's how do you rebuild? Do you have a strategy around that?
no, it's a great question. I mean, I would find the buyers. I would do a ton of reverse engineering, and there's a low hanging fruit for AI. I'd probably do a massive data search, and I'd even buy the data of like who are the actual movers and shakers of buyers in this market, and then I would hit a target list, and I would just blow up the phones, and I would
I
hit them
love
on
it.
email. I would hit them on social. I would set up coffee meetings. I would just go ape shit, as they would say. You know, Mamba mentality. I'd wake up at 5. I'd go to bed at 12. Whatever I need to do to get, my brand awareness and presence known in this market. Say, hey, I'm here now, guys. I'm looking to do deals. I know that might be a simple answer, or that might be a simple answer,
No,
but
that's a fantastic answer. You do what it takes, you work hard, put your head down, and get yourself in front of the right people. I think that's a fabulous answer.
Well, I also think it's important because a lot of people want some sexy shortcut way to become
Right.
successful. And there's young guys in my office that I mentor. And they'll ask me, how do you get business? How do I get leads? And I tell them the same thing, Ryan. It's not there isn't some magic formula. You have to pick up the phone and you have to go meet people. Maybe someday as AI advances, there'll be an easier way to do it. But right now you just have to get your hands dirty
Mhm.
and make the call. So I think it's great advice. One thing I do want to kind of shift towards when we've met, we've talked a little bit together about scaling and your goals to grow the company, and you're very ambitious. Clearly, I don't know exactly what you have planned for the company, but in the next 10 years, what does scaling look like? Do you have to completely change your business model to scale to say be in every major city in the U.S., or do you just kind of tweak it as you go?
and that's the thing. I think with every business, like we are still improving every department. Everything needs to get better, whether that's
Mhm.
technology or CRM, our A-level play. We need more A-level players. Like I was saying earlier, we're just the aggregate of as many talented people in the organization. People are developing. We need to be able to turn maybe people that are in sales right now in 3 years into, we're looking for our future leaders and we're developing them into, hey, we're ready to actually invest in this individual and then go into this market and then give them the tools and resources based on what we've learned because we're doing it in real time, right? Like we actually
Right.
did start from one to or 0 to 1 in terms of DFW in Dallas. So
Yeah.
I don't know when the right time will be, but in 10 years, I think without a doubt we will be in Houston, Austin, and San Antonio for sure. Texas at the bare minimum. There's a lot of things that need to happen to get there, but that's what we're working on every day. And there are certain things that we're implementing now. I think that like we need to be able to figure out, like you said, how do we aggregate those buyers immediately and from the second we do enter a new market, while also again, a lot of our sourcing comes from those direct to seller wholesalers. So we got to have a strategy on like, okay, day one, we just don't plop in and have no strategy on like, okay, we have to have a direct line to these individuals. And yeah, I don't have all the answers, but in 10 years, I mean, we should definitely be saturated throughout Texas. and hopefully we're starting to eye nationwide rollout. So, like you said, we are very ambitious. Most of our team and individuals are, very bought into the mission and vision, and we've been accelerating, upward mobility quickly for our top performers. We have a new GM of Fort Worth. We have our first ever hire is now the GM of Dallas, right back from 3 years ago.
Wow.
There's a lot of people grabbing those director, those team lead type of roles, leadership roles, right? So, we're just looking for good talent. We're looking to move them up the ladder quickly, and that's how we grow. Put the right people in the right seats, and good things happen.
Mm-hmm. Which is a perfect segue into my next question. I want to know kind of you and Nick's hiring philosophy and what you look for in top performers. Because I'm assuming when you started RFP, you didn't have a ton of experience on hiring and interviewing and, yeah, finding the right people. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to that, just being put in that position and going, okay, here I go. I got to figure this out. What are the qualities, the attributes, the values that I'm looking for in my team members and my partners? So, how did you and Nick figure that out? And what are some things you look for in your team members?
Man, I can go on and on for days about this, but I mean, first and foremost, I mean, you guys know this. You have to be wired a certain type of way to want to go into 100% commission, eat what you kill kind of environment.
Totally.
Those kind of people that are meant to be in this environment, they don't grow on trees. I mean, we've read a few studies. We use culture index too, which gauges, autonomy and sociability and speed and a few other things, which we actually have a lot of data proving that there are some trends of which characteristics and traits of people that need to be doing this. But even though like it's not even just competing against people that want to get into real estate, it's all sales professions, right? So finding people is the hardest bottle. It's the hardest constraint. The type of individuals we're looking for, uh, they're kind of come down to our core values. But I mean, these people have to have unwavering confidence, a delusional belief in themselves that they're going to make it happen. Because you have to be a little delusional to jump into
Yeah,
something because you
That's
guys
the truth.
know how hard
yes.
it is. And I really look for people that, like to do hard things. I
Mm-hmm.
love doing hard things. I think gross on the other side of hard things, whether that's, I know this might sound dumb, but if I'm going to go do an ice bath every morning for 3 minutes just to challenge myself and, I'm going to little things like that. I'm always looking to challenge myself in every department of life, especially in work, because again, those hard things is what's going to propel you to the next growth stage and help you beat the next boss, which is how I look at scale. You got to get that skill set in, whatever that skill set is, that's what's going to take you to the next level. And again, like the media thing right now, like this is really hard and I feel very dumb and, I'm in that stage again, but obviously I'm looking for people to come in and, raise the bar. Is this someone that I could see myself working for potentially? If so, and these are kind of the check marks I'm going through interviewing process and also just
Mm-hmm.
testing, seeing how they're wired as well. And I think, Brett, I don't know if you saw, the two custom pieces that I hung in our Uptown office, the Kobe
Mhm.
Bryant's and the Tom Brady.
Yeah.
There's your analogy. I want Tom Brady's and I want Kobe Bryant's. I want mama mentality. People just obsessed with personal development and growth, and they're going to do whatever it takes to be successful because they're just intrinsic winners at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know, and also too, our number one, I think, core value is just competitiveness. That's probably the
Yeah.
overarching word I would remember from this call. Is just like you got to be competitive. You will
Mhm.
not survive in any job. I don't care what job it is, if it is specifically commercial or single family investment sales or brokerage. You will not survive unless you're hyper competitive. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and that's why I've had a leg up because I did baseball at a high level in the most competitive environments. And, I hate to lose. I don't even like winning anymore. I hate to lose. It burns. And those are
I
the
feel the same way.
Yeah.
absolutely. I always ask an interview. I'm not doing as much interviews as I used to. We have our GMs running the interviews now, and we have a director of recruitment. But I mean, there was a point where I was literally doing 6, 7, 8 interviews a day. I kid you not, back to back to back to back, and I got pretty good at
Wow.
interviewing. But again, and at the same time, even if these people have these traits, once they're in the fire, right, once they're in the shit, as they say, and they're going to
Mm-hmm.
war every day, they're either going to make it or they're not. This is a high attrition industry. So for us, and also too, we just want good, high character people that have
Mhm.
high standards. And once they're in the organization, if they check the boxes they're willing to get licensed and come take a shot on us with us, we're going to give them 110%. Then it's on them. We'll give them
Yeah.
everything they need to succeed and run. And then frankly, it's like, are they going to make it or not? And that's really it. So as long as they hit those traits I just mentioned, and they seem like good individuals and people we like hanging out with every day, and raise the bar up the culture, then we give them a shot, and then on them, it's they either sink or swim. That's the
Yeah.
reality.
That's such a good point, and it's true in commercial as well, is you can do the best you can to evaluate somebody's skill set. You can give them the personality test. And we've struggled with this at my company as well. But at the end of the day, when they're in that seat and they have to make the calls, it's very clear pretty quickly if someone will be able to be successful or not. And so in some regards, you do the best you can, and then you don't have to worry about it, because if they're meant to be there, if they want to be there enough, they'll create a path for themselves to be successful.
Yeah.
So, along these lines, we have a lot of young brokers who listen to the show. And so, what is one piece of advice you would give a young broker, regardless of whether they're in single family or commercial or industrial? What's one piece of advice you would give them to be successful in the real estate industry?
Oh, I think this is do not wait for answers to come to you. You have to be crazy with your approach, your resiliency to go out, because we're all crazy busy, Bradley. You know that, right? You're
Oh, yeah.
there, we're hustling, we're getting
So
deals done.
busy.
I think like we have standardized trainings every Tuesday. We have powwows and things and check-ins with the team, but it's just as much as them going out and hunting for new buyers and business as them training themselves, right?
Hmm.
I don't know what you don't know. You come and ask a million questions. In fact, that's one of the biggest indicators if someone's going to have success, from what I've seen, is how many questions are they asking? How are they hunting for
Hmm.
information?
I
I'm a,
agree
I'm
with
a
that.
yeah, and so just you got to go and like, don't feel like you're bothering I don't say superiors, but your brokers, your bosses, the top performers. That's all I did for my job. I had to out of necessity because I started during COVID. I didn't have an office for 3 years. I had to be so forceful to go out there and figure stuff out which I'm very grateful at the time. It was really hard. And there were moments where like, God, no one's really helping me. I was like, you know what? I
Yeah.
got to go find out the answers. And again,
Yeah.
look at information's democratized now. I mean, all the answers are out there. I mean, this is why I love doing these podcasts. And if there's one thing you can take away from a podcast, like all the top founders, all the top entrepreneurs, all the top athletes, like we're all podcasting. Information and is democratized. Go out there. All the success leaves clues.
Mm-hmm.
Study the greats and figure out their frameworks, and then that's all I do. And
Great advice.
I have an insatiable appetite for learning,
Mm,
and I think I love it. I love learning new skills, and it gets me excited, and you see my
yeah.
smile.
I
Yeah.
can tell, and it's evident that that's one of the reasons that you've built something as successful as RFP. So that's amazing. Don't wait for the answers or the deals to come to you. Go out and do your work. Get your
And
hands
I have
dirty.
I have one more as well, and I hear a lot of people like they say they want to. I'm very coachable. I want to be coached hard, and then when push comes to shove, they don't like critical feedback, and it's not critical feedback. Again, coming from a sports background, I had some hardcore coaches, and but I loved it. I'm like, I want to know if I'm not doing something right. If I'm not bringing my A game, or if you see me slacking, like call me out. I'm not here to hurt
Totally.
not here to hurt your feelings. It's here to drive the most result out of you. And that's the thing. A lot of times I think some people just really need some people in their corner being harder to them because they see greatness in the individual. And, that's a lot of my job now is distill my, mindset and beliefs and lessons and really help the younger generation come up now. Cause I'm 32 now and I know I'm not I'm still a young buck, but, we do get a lot of kids coming out of college and just starting their
Yeah.
career. It's really rewarding and cool to be able to distill what I've learned and pass that
Hmm.
down, right? And I have mentors that are super successful in their 50s and 60s, like people that I strive to be. And they've just been in the game a little longer. It's also attainable. Whatever these younger people are seeing, I think they're like, oh shit, it doesn't happen overnight. You got to have delayed
Mm.
gratification. Um,
Hmm.
and trust the process and you will get there. And then again, just tie yourself to people that are hyper success. Whatever you want to become, find that tribe and get in that room and just go to work, and you will become that person. It's so true.
Mhm.
The aggregate of the top 5 people, you're our organization, right? Whoever you show me your tribe, I'll show you your future. So it's
Mhm.
Mm.
very true.
I think that's so true in a world of participation awards, and I just feel like for the young people, it's things are changing, and especially if you don't have a background in sports or competitive environment, the constructive criticism can feel very personal and violating, and
Yeah.
that's not the case at all. If someone's giving you constructive criticism, it's because they believe that you can succeed and they want you to get better. So don't take it personally. I'm curious because you've been in the real estate world for quite a while now. This is kind of a hot take question. What's something that you believe about this business that may or may not piss off the majority of brokers out there?
Well, that's a tough one. Okay, I think I got one. It's not the market, it's you.
Mm,
I
I
love
love
that.
that.
Does that make sense? I
I think
think.
I've said that to people before.
Yes.
Well, it drives me nuts when people are brokers. They're like, oh, they're coming in all sad and laggy and low energy, and it's the market that's replacing blame. The best brokers make shit happen in any market. We're all dealing with the same macro,
Mhm.
micro, economic events or this or that, right? We're on level playing field. Everyone's having to adapt in real time. So the top 10% of brokers, they're the ones that are able to adapt and figure stuff out on the fly. And that's all business is. I mean, we want to kill old RFP. We want to make what we did last year and the year before obsolete, right? We're constantly reiterating and readapting. We don't just sit there and, oh, this is great. We're
Very
always,
innovative.
you always have to innovate and actually, outcompete yourself. Right. So,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and the same thing goes with the market. I don't really look at too much what's going on external. Again, I stick to the basics. And we just adapt. Everyone else is dealing with the same shit. Don't complain about the market. I don't want to hear about the market. We started the firm RFP. If most people would say at probably the worst time, but I thought it was the best time. Because while everyone else was hunkering down and going away from offices and maybe moving virtual, we went completely against the grain. We went all in. Um, and started growing and building when people were actually firing people and shutting down. So I think that's always a good lesson. I always try to see what most of the world's doing. I'll do the opposite. A lot of
Do
times
the
you're
opposite.
contrarian thinking there, but
That was
There
a
is so
mic
much
drop moment. We could, end the episode right there. That was
I was gonna
good.
say there's so much good advice in this
Yeah.
episode. I love the way you think, Ryan. You're such a strategic systems thinker, but you're also a visionary and very inspiring. So I feel like when you combine those two things, it's very clear why you've built what you've built. So thank you for sharing all this. We are going to go in now to our kind of fun part of the episode called Deal or No Deal.
okay.
And Ryan, what these are just some quick scenarios, kind of out there things that maybe have happened to you or maybe they will in the future. And you just tell us, is this a deal for you? A yes or no deal? A no. And no follow-up questions. It's just the first thought that comes to your mind on this.
Single answer, or do you want me to expand on
You can explain once you give your answer. Yeah.
whatever?
Okay. You lock in generational wealth in the next 3 years, but it costs you your current lifestyle, all of your free time, and many of your relationships during that time because you're so focused on work. Deal or no deal?
Deal.
Ooh,
I like it.
I
Okay.
like that.
Explain.
All in, burn the boats. I think there's seasons. Yeah, seasons of life. I mean, you kind of have your buckets in life. It's business, it's family, it's health. It's impossible to keep that furnace burning on all of them. Something. Also, I have this discussion with a lot of our newer agents a lot where, like, man, they don't get to see my friends anymore. I'm like,
Mhm.
who cares? The real OGs, the real friends that you know that they see you doing big things. They understand, right? And they're always there in your corner. That
Yeah.
same thing with family. If your family really loves you and they're supportive and like they realize if you're going for big things, it's just the season of life and it'll pass. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great advice.
Sacrifices will have to be made.
You said generational wealth. So our whole mission, I mean, really is to simplify real estate investing and help people build generational wealth. That's that is what we're doing in real time. Because a lot of our buyers, and I'm sorry, I know we're doing the fun part, but a lot of our
No,
buyers,
you're good.
we do work with institutions. A lot of our buyers, they're everyday people that are looking for their first, second, maybe even third investment property. And obviously, the easiest asset class to enter is single family. I mean, you only need $40,000, $50,000 with hard money and some leverage to actually, take a bite out of your first deal. It all starts with that first steps. Long term, think Robinhood for single family real estate investing. Like we really want to democratize all and help investors roadmap their way to generational wealth. I know we were talking about like scaling, but we can't get to that point unless we're in every major market. And our metric is helping buyers win and guiding them, hitting their first, hitting their second, hitting their third, to the point where like they can retire and build a legacy and pass that down to their future generation. Generational wealth is like the word that I want everyone to remember for RFP Homes. Like that is our whole mission and goal, is to really create a world where everyone has a clear and accessible path to generational wealth. That's obsessing over products and service and other things. You guys know how hard it is to take a bite of or to actually go, okay, I want to be a real estate investor, which I think most people are, but it's so complex and complicated, right? No one really knows the wherewithal. So that's our whole, everything we're building upon is to figure out a way to simplify the real estate investing process for investors so they can build wealth, generational wealth.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I
I
think
want,
you have 2 new clients on
I
the Zoom call
I
with
was
you
gonna
right
say,
now.
where do I sign up? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'll,
Thank you
I'll
for
get you
adding
plugged.
that.
I'll get you plugged in with one of our top investor advisors, and they'll get you on your journey.
Love
That would be
that. I
awesome.
love that.
I'm
Awesome.
sorry. What's the next one? Let's keep it being fun for a bit.
No, that was important. I'm glad you added
Yeah.
that. Okay, number 2 here, you scale the company on paid leads and systems, but you know your team will never have the same hustle or skill set that built the business originally. Is that a deal or not a deal?
I would say no. That would have killed the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
an
that's
easy
a
one.
great answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You keep your most loyal day 1 employee, even though they're now your weakest performer and holding the business back. Deal or no deal?
Ooh,
Mm,
that's tough, but it's
it's
no
tough.
deal.
No
It's no
deal.
deal. Unfortunately, there's different stages of business. Some people play a critical role at current time, but it's their job to keep up and adapt and to, continue to
Mhm.
add immense value for the organization. That's been some of the hardest stuff, right? Because again, you create a standard. If someone or something dips below that standard, even out, no matter how close you are to an individual, or everyone else is watching. How are you going to
Mhm.
handle that situation? And again, we run this like a competitive sports team. If this was the Yankees or if this was Tom Brady and someone wasn't performing well, would they be on that team?
Right.
No,
No.
No.
no. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Makes
it's,
sense.
it's unfortunate, but you'd have to rip the cord, and we've had to do that a few times. And then that's just the reality. And that's the hard part. That's the hard part of business. And, knowing that even a lot of people are here in current time may not be with us in 10 years, and, things are constantly changing, and we're reinventing the bar and reinventing the standard. And it's like, you gotta keep up, or, you might not be here for the long haul.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's just
That's
business.
Great
the
answer.
It's
that's
not,
the
it's not
tough
good or
part.
good. It's not good nor bad, but, to protect the culture, to protect an organization, and to protect the standards, that's kind of what has to happen.
Mhm.
And it sucks, but it's just the reality.
No, I think that's a great answer. And as long as you're being consistent and, the standards are clear and evident, this is where we want you to be at. And if you're not going to be able to meet those expectations, then you're no longer a part of the team. So I think that's super fair. Okay, last one here. You give up control and bring in a partner or capital to scale faster, even if it means not doing things your way anymore and losing some of the control. Deal
No
or
deal.
no deal?
We're no deal. We already did that. Founder 101. We sold a decent chunk of our. I should never talk publicly about this. And again, our capital partners, they played a massive role, but we sold off a massive chunk of the business. Uh, I'm not going to get out a number, and which we had to do a big buyback recently for like probably
Mhm.
I think 40x of what we initially got in. Um,
Whoa.
but that's what we did. We made the mistake of selling off too soon because we at the time didn't think, oh, we don't know how to do this or we don't know how to do that. And, you know, and again, now our mindset is whatever we need to figure out. We don't have to give up equity or control. Unless the equity is for a key player that, you know, that invests or whatever, I like an actual structure behind it. But absolutely, but no, that's a big no.
You've
Is that
done it before. It's a no deal. That
we've
makes
already,
perfect sense.
and I think there's a lot of like founders and people. The best podcast, by the way, I know, in my opinion, is David Cerna and the Founders Podcast. I don't know if you guys
Mm.
have heard of that one.
Yes,
Um,
we have.
but I mean, there's just countless examples of business owners and founders that make that mistake, and then too, a lot of times too, they sell their businesses and they're kind of depressed after because they're like, well, what am I going to do? We don't really have an exit plan. This is a forever business for us, something that we can hopefully it outlasts us, right? It's like a child right now. Hopefully it's, it'll be a
Mhm.
teenager one day. And then hopefully by 18 and 20, it's kind of on its own and its own, it's able to run itself. We've done
Mhm.
our job and it can run without us, but don't get me wrong. Like I want to be there forever, but that's kind of the mindset of it, right? It's this
Right.
unique individual baby that we're nurturing and, trying to grow and hopefully one day it can outlast us. But yeah, sorry, I'm kind of digressing.
No,
No.
all good advice. Thank you. So, as we close out here, Ryan, where can people find you? They want to get in touch. Maybe they're interested in investing with you. What is your socials? Where's the best place to get in touch with you?
Yeah, for on the company side of things, you can take a look at us at rfphomes.com. We also have rfphomes.com on Instagram, LinkedIn. Please connect with us. If you want to connect with our marketplace, simple, easy, click through, enter your information. One of our awesome investor advisors will connect with you and kind of get you on that path forward to creating generational wealth. Myself personally, I connect most with on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. Very glad I went all in on LinkedIn a couple years ago. But Ryan Romo on LinkedIn and then Ryan Romo Real Estate on Instagram, which I just started a year ago. So still scaling that up. And then if you want to see my fun personal side, then you can just connect to me like Ryan.Romo on Instagram as well. But RFP Homes and Ryan Romo, it's pretty easy to find us.
Pretty easy.
Big things happening for RFP. So exciting. Ryan, we can't thank you enough for being on Brick and Brand today. I'm honestly just so inspired and impressed by you and what you and Nick have built. I think there was so many valuable takeaways from today, but one of the biggest things that is stuck in my brain is burn the boats. If you're looking to build something big and something that's going to last beyond you, get rid of all the distractions and dive headfirst in and get your hands dirty, be willing to put in the work and hold yourself to a higher standard. And I think you are an incredible example of that. And I'm thankful for your wisdom and your expertise that you shared with us today. So thank you for your time and thank you for being on Brick and Brand.
And I appreciate you guys. This was fun. And yeah, just go for great. Go for great. That's all I can
Love
say.
it.
Thank you, Ryan. And we'll see everybody next time on Brick and Brand.